big mistake SDRs make when first getting started is getting way too technical about what the heck their company actually does. If you remember from our cold calling session over here, the cold calling Jedi bell curve, where you have a newbie who's very low anxiety because they don't really know much. Then as you learn and as you grow, you get very anxious and you become this anxious, try hard, wannabe know-it-all. But all of that anxiety hurts you in terms of your actual confidence and ability to perform. And then as you master the cold calling skill set, your anxiety goes down as your knowledge increases. This is the same for understanding what your company does. When you first get to a company, you don't really know much about it. And because the expectation that you know a lot is so low, you don't really have much anxiety about not knowing much about the product. But as you go through your first few weeks and as you start hearing about all these product features and getting these demos from your technical team and learning more and more and more, the expectation of your knowledge goes up, so does your anxiety. So what happens is you become this try-hard SDR that explains everything your company does like a robot to the level of depth where you've lost everyone. And so what this sounds like is on cold calls. If you're talking to a prospect and they say, well, what do you guys do? And you say, well, we optimize the inefficiencies in the ecosystem of the integrations between what you're doing here and what you're doing there. They're going to be like, what did you just say? Bye. And that is the middle of the bell curve where you're such a tryhard. You think you know so much, but you really just sound like a fool. So the best thing to do is to learn how to communicate everything you do, but as a Jedi, with confidence, with certainty, with clarity. The proper way to explain how your company actually helps people is to understand all of the deep technical stuff, but then to wrap it up in a very easily digestible way that sounds human. When I was an SDR, I felt like I always had to be so deep and technical and sound smart. But when I would talk to my prospects, I would lose them in the details and in the weeds because I didn't actually know what we did and how we helped people. All I did was sit through a bunch of hour-long trainings from someone talking on a screen share about all these technical words, but I didn't truly understand what it is that my company did to actually go help people. And so the persona pain map is going to be your step-by-step guide of how you break down who you sell to, what problems they have, and how you help. The first question in the persona pain map is, what titles do you target? You have to know who you sell to. Pretty simple, right? So in this map here, we're just going to start with what titles do you actually sell to? So let's say I am working for HubSpot, right? It's a CRM, it's a sales tool. So we target CMOs, VPs of sales, and heads of SDR. Okay, cool. Now in this case, because there's so many, let's just itemize them so we can have a clean value prop for each title we have. So this would be CMOs, VPs of sales, heads of SDRs. Cool. Next question. What does your persona actually do, right? Like a lot of you are probably selling to like CISOs or heads of DevOps or whatever. You probably really don't actually know what they do. Let's be real, because I don't, right? And so we need to figure that out. You have to know your customer. That's it. Know your enemy, right? So in this case, what are the typical responsibilities that this title is responsible for, right? So I'm not going to go super deep. You should go deeper on these. But just to walk through this example, typical responsibilities for a marketer runs all of marketing ops, including demand gen. Goal is to bring awareness to brand and generate leads for sales to close, right? So that would be typical responsibilities of a CMO, right? You could get more granular. What do they actually do? What's their day-to-day, right? So that would be like, regular syncs with demand gen and marketing ops to streamline. Maybe they do like strategy reviews with sales leads or heads, right? So you could get more granular. What do they actually do in their day-to-day? So the next question we have to answer is the problem statement. what pain does this person actually have? Because if you don't have pain associated with the person's day to day, then this product you're trying to pitch becomes a nice to have versus a need to have. And that demo you're trying to book with them becomes a waste of time versus, we should probably look into this because this is relevant. So you have to understand, what pain does this person have? Data shows that people buy to avoid pain rather than to enjoy pleasure. What this actually looks like is, if I sold you a minivan and I said, hey, you've got to buy this minivan because if you don't, your kids are going to be screaming in the back seat for hours as you're driving around because you have no way to entertain them. Versus, hey, you guys should buy this minivan because we have some entertainment in the back seat that'll keep your kids quiet for hours. The difference there is that you as a buyer are more inclined to avoid a negative consequence than you are to enjoy a positive benefit. So when I tell you that your kids are going to be screaming for hours in the back seat because they don't have a backseat entertainment center and we do, you're going to be more inclined to buy than if I just said, yeah, you guys have a entertainment center in the back, it'll keep your kids quiet. That negative framing around pain and around loss is going to motivate people more than a positive framing about, yeah, we can make your life better. So it's very important you understand what problems they have. And then the second question is, how do they actually currently deal with the problem? What's the most common way? So for this example, what problems do marketers have? Generating qualified leads, disjointed lead funnels, hard to track campaign success and outcomes. Okay, so how do they usually deal with the problem? Well, in this case, sometimes they'll have tech, right? So they might have, insert competitor names, competitor 1 or competitor 2, right? You get the point here. Typing under pressure. Don't mess up, Jack. I messed up. Oh no, don't hate me. Okay. Competitor 2. Perfect. Or maybe they have like a manual process, right? A lot of people have that where it's like a spreadsheet. So auto, or we'll say spreadsheets to track campaign progress, right? Okay, cool. So next thing we need to understand is, what is the actual impact of the pain? AKA, what are the negative consequences of the pain existing, right? Because it's not enough to just have kids screaming in the back. The impact of that is that now there's no peace in the car. Now I'm frustrated as the driver of the car because the kids won't stop talking. Now mom's feeling insecure about, hey, like, why can't I keep the kids calm? And now like our family's disunified. Now I'm yelling and now my kids think I hate them, right? Like, these are the impacts of that pain existing. Same thing in the business here, where it's like, okay, in the case of having manual spreadsheets, the impact is spending 2 to 3 hours a week on manual data entry, hoping things are inputted accurately, and then spending another 2 to 3 hours on analysis and action items to improve campaign performance, right? So again, because they are the pain they have and how they're currently dealing with it, because it's a manual spreadsheet, here's kind of the negative impact of that. And then also, more broadly, like, what is the impact of hard to track campaign success and outcomes? Well, in this case, if you can't, or let's say if they can't track campaign ROI, their budget gets slashed. They will be required to get more outcomes with less resources, and eventually the CFO will deem them a waste of money and cut the team, right? These are very real impacts, right? So if the pain I have is it's really hard for me to track campaign success and outcomes. Well, if I can't track that, I can't tell my leadership team that the money we're spending is going to a good cause. My budget gets slashed. I still have the same goals, and eventually I get cut, or my program gets cut from the company, and they find someone else who can do it better. So how does it impact the team negatively? Well, again, we just kind of talked about, for example, like team performance and attribution will be misrepresented, leading to limited resources and eventually layoffs. And in the company, in this case, like company won't know which funnels are paying off and are worth doubling down on, meaning sales aren't getting enough warm marketing leads, meaning company misses revenue targets. And you can keep playing that one out to, missed revenue targets equals layoffs equals yada, yada, yada. So that would be the impact section. So the next thing we need to look at is what are the metrics their performance is measured on. So a CMO, they're going to be measured on ad spend ROI, for example. They're going to be measured on number of marketing leads passed to sales. They're going to be measured on percent of marketing leads that turn into revenue, right? So they are responsible for these key KPIs, just like you as an SDR are responsible for booking meetings. Every other person in a company has KPIs that they're responsible for performing against. And if they don't, bye-bye. You need to understand what that metric is so that you can speak the language to your prospects of what they care about, not what you care about, what they care about. So how are the metrics impacted by the problem? Some of this is self-explanatory, but like ad spend ROI, the impact would be unclear. ROI will confuse future campaign efforts, for example. And you could play the others out. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, cool. So how do you guys actually help, right? So all-in-one campaign management interface showing very clear metrics and ROI of each campaign to ensure full visibility and ease of decision making. Also provide AI-driven campaign recommendations of where to shift ad spend. Okay, so how do you guys actually help, right? What is it that you actually do? And then what are the customer stories? What's the proof, right? So we could say, my company, let's say HubSpot, we helped Walmart reduce ad waste by 30 million and improve marketing lead to sales conversion by 12%, something like that. And then you can link to the case study. So what this does for me as an SDR is I actually know what the heck I'm talking about. I know what CMOs do. I know what problems they have. I know what they're probably doing right now. I understand the impact that the problem is causing. I understand how it impacts their team and their company. I understand what metrics they care about and how the problems kind of fluctuate with the metrics or vice versa. I understand what we actually do to help on a very simple, practical way. And then I've got some proof to accompany that with. So what you'll want to do is go through each title you target and fill this out. Now, 2 action items for you. One is that you can actually use ChatGPT, or in this case, this is called Perplexity AI. It's like a research GPT, free to use. And you can basically get a good start just based on this. But fair warning, if you're lazy and this is all you do, you're still going to sound like a dum-dum when you're trying to talk to your prospects, because ChatGPT does not know your buyer as well as some of the people at your company should know. And I'll get to that in a second. So in this case, you'll just use this prompt, which I will include in the school module, but it's just all these same questions, and we're just asking Perplexity AI to go answer it. So pretend you're a B2B outbound sales expert. Here's the company. Here are my questions. And then boom, now we get all this info. So what I would do is basically copy paste this over just as a start, right? Boom, got it. Over here, pasted it in, perfect. So now we're gonna come back and let's take the second one. Now these responsibilities are a bit lazy, right? This is why using robots isn't as good as connecting with humans at your company. But the idea here is that you now have visibility into a good foundation of what you need to be thinking about here. And some of these KPIs, for example, like these are pretty helpful, where, customer retention rate, well, that's likely going to be your customer success manager, right? So this is a good reference to start with, but the second action item for you is to go to your team. So go to your seasoned SDRs, go to your SDR managers, and go to your account executives. Probably the most important one is the account executives, because they sell to this person every freaking day. They are talking to these people. When you book those demos, who do they go to? Well, they go to your AE. So who's your AE talking to all day? People in your ICP that have these issues. So talk to them, go through it step by step, cell by cell. Maybe you even do this as an exercise with your SDR team, but go through with your AEs cell by cell and see what you're missing there and what you need to change to make sure that you have a full understanding of what your product actually does. Not that you're repeating all these fancy, silly buzzwords that make you sound like you're optimizing your vocabulary and technicality, but actually the ability to communicate very simple but very real problems that your buyer, your customer has, so that you can confidently go into these conversations and not be caught off guard. The template will be right here in the school module. Feel free to hit file, make a copy, and please, please, please fill this out with your team so that you can go book more meetings.